morning. Welcome to our September I Am Tech Oregon interview, sponsored by First Tech Federal Credit Union. I'm Ruthie, TAO's Marketing and Regional Program Coordinator, and I use she, her pronouns. And I'm lucky enough to be the moderator for the 2021 I Am Tech Oregon series, which has given me the opportunity to talk to some really amazing folks in our membership. And I am very excited to talk to today's guest about his journey into the world of digital accessibility. We have a couple other members of the TAO team with me today, Justin Martinez and Kara Toronto. Justin is keeping us moving in the back end. So if you have any questions regarding Zoom or logistics, you can reach out to him in the chat. And then Kara's here, just keeping people engaged in the chat box. A few quick Zoom reminders, although at this point, I think we're all just like, not another Zoom call, but here we are, still virtual through the end of 2021, and everyone's muted. You're welcome to come on video, but please remain on mute unless you have a question and someone unmutes you, a TAO staff member unmutes you and calls on you to talk. Definitely post questions for our guests in the chat, and Kara will be monitoring it to make sure that we get all the questions answered. In addition, we're going to be using a tool called Mentimeter to do a live Q&A at the end of the half hour. So you can log in right now if you'd like, so that you can input your questions there throughout the event. And you can do that by either scanning the QR code or going to menti.com and entering that those numbers that are on the screen. And then Justin also posted the Menti link in the chat, so you can click on that and input questions there. And we will reshare all of these access details again when that time comes. If you have anything, any key takeaways, cool thoughts, quotes from our guests that you just think are so inspirational that you want to share with the world, I encourage you to engage with us on social media. I am the person behind TAO social media, so I love to, engage with people in real time and see different things that people have taken away from our events. And now it is my pleasure to welcome our September I Am Tech Oregon guest, Marty Gaiter, who is the founder of Uncommon Sense Business Solutions. Welcome, Marty.
Hi, how are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm good. I tweaked my back really bad. So I'm like kind of in this like stiff position so as to not move my back. But other than that, I am fine. Kara has given me a chiropractor recommendation.
I'm going to be honest, I may be a little distracted. I've got a Rottweiler chewing on a bone like right now, right next to me on a hardwood floor. So if it gets a little loud, I apologize. So if
we hear any like really weird noises, we'll know what's up. That's like the other day, I was on a call and my window was open and there was a murder of crows in the tree outside my house. And I thought that the person I was talking to couldn't hear it. But halfway through the call, they were like, what's going on? Like, why are there so many birds?
She's been asleep all morning until like right now.
Classic. Love it. Work from home life. All right. So let's kick this off, Marty.
Sure.
I'm really excited to get into this conversation. And I think the work that you do is incredibly interesting. And I'm excited to share it with the rest of our membership. So as I mentioned, you founded a business called Uncommon Sense Business Solutions. And so I'm curious if you could just launch us and let us know a little bit more about yourself and how you ended up in the career you find yourself in today. How did you pivot into tech?
Yeah, well, first of all, I always have to kind of start with the name initially. I didn't get a chance to explain this to you. My first business name I thought was really cool, and that's why I'll tell anybody when you start with a business name, make sure it makes sense. I had a really cool business name that I thought was really great that I ran with for like maybe 3 years here in Lane County that I found out no one really understood. And so I actually changed it to Uncommon Sense Business Solution, USBS, because what I try to do is something a little different. Because when I was talking to someone, and another consultant that I talked to, they said, well, do you do things that are common that are uncommon? And I said, well, I try to do things that are a little outside the fray. I usually try to take a different approach. So it's kind of an uncommon sense business solution. And so my approach to tech has always been more of a, yeah, I'm going to try to find a way to break what's just the status quo, what's normal. I always look at it from a standpoint, since a human brain made the tech, I'm not afraid of it. So if I can break a system that we're afraid of, and then find a way to interact with it and make it simple for the people that are going to need it, then that's where I can kind of help. I'm that glue in the middle. So that's what has brought me into accessibility. So first I was like, I tell people I was a geek whisperer, kind of helping them understand, like, you know, IT stuff, getting them to the right level of what they needed. So I basically started there. And then last year I rebranded myself right before COVID, and then COVID hit. I stopped, went to work with a vendor that did accessibility, and then I left that vendor, went out on my own, and found that there was a need. People don't understand, both government agencies, which is my primary target, and non-governmental agencies don't understand what digital accessibility means for both them and the people that they work with, both internally and externally. What does that mean? What are the implications? What are the ramifications? How do I start? Where do I go? Who do I talk to? I'm the guy to kind of help navigate the waters.
Yeah, it's like, that really seems to be such a crucial role in tech, right? I think that I know for myself, I've always had this like stereotype, like, oh, if you work in tech, you have to have a technical background. And it's really like, no, there's this huge space for folks who are good communicators and can kind of do the translation. And it sounds like that's really like where you found yourself, is like, here's this, you know, what you said when we were talking earlier, that digital accessibility is this like misunderstood space.
Yeah, it really is. And I think back to when I used to be a pharmaceutical rep, like I tell people, yes, I was a drug dealer at one point in time, but it was legal. It was legal. I worked for a company called Wyeth Pharmaceuticals, who was also absorbed by the big behemoth Pfizer. I didn't have any background in biochemistry or anything that had to do with anything in the pharmaceutical industry. I had to learn a whole new language with pharmacology and drug interaction. There's all these different things that you have to learn to be able to talk to medical professionals, to be able to help them, because on a day-to-day, these doctors are dealing with patient types and steady states and all these things, and they have no clue what these new drugs are doing on a regular basis that they have to deal with their patients, right? But you've got to know that industry sector. So in a sense, that's what I've taken with accessibility, digital accessibility. I'm learning all these different aspects of digital accessibility and applying it to the business sector. Right now, I'm working with transportation. They understand that sector, but how does that apply to what their customers are going to be doing when it comes to accessing schedules and doing things to that effect? How does that affect their population? Do they know how to get to the web? Do they have to access applications, that sort of thing? How does that affect them?
Yeah, and I'm wondering if you can, you know, I think digital accessibility is kind of like a hot topic these days, as it should be. Can you give us like some examples of when you're talking about that accessibility in a digital space? What are some examples?
Yeah, some of the big things that people tend to miss is, and I tell people, digital accessibility usually applies to websites. I call it the Y2K of the web right now. If people don't, I tend to date myself, I'm that old. Y2K was back when people forgot, oh yeah, we need 4 characters for 1984 versus just 84. People make websites, and there's anywhere from 1 line of code to a bazillion line of codes to represent a website. And so you have different levels of skill that would make a website. But the problem comes when you have people with a disability accessing a website. For example, I have, believe it or not, I'm on the disability scale. I have ADHD. If I go to a website and that website is coded to present a lot of stuff on the website when I go to that website, like there's a bunch of graphics and there's things moving all around it and whatever, it's way too busy, that would be a digitally, that website would not pass as digitally accessible to someone with a disability who has ADHD, because it's too busy. There's too much there for that person to access. So that would not pass. People that actually don't recognize that, they think, well, I got to have all this stuff on the website. They're actually doing more damage. So that's one problem, having a busy website. Color contrast issues, like if their text doesn't pop away from the background, it just blends in. If you've got a screen reader that's supposed to be tabbing through, it's not making the discernible, it's not discerning itself from the background to the actual text to be able to read it. So that's a problem for the screen reader. Or one of the biggest ones that e-commerce gets hit by the attorneys that are out there. If people are doing e-commerce and they've got images on their website for things that they're selling, you got to have text behind those images saying, what is this image? Because if the screen reader goes to it and doesn't tell someone with visual disability what it is, that's a digitally not accessible website.
Well, and I mean, it's a disadvantage to that e-commerce business because folks aren't even going to see or understand what they have to offer for sale. So
exactly, that's the thing that people, I try to impress upon just the private sector. 1 in 5 people in our nation have a disability. 1 in 5 people, and they have like such amazing spending. They're actually the largest. They're the largest minority, or people that are disabled. They're the largest minority in our country, and they have such a huge spending power. So I tell anybody that has e-commerce, if you're not taking advantage of it, you are basically missing out on 25% of your business.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Definitely seems like you found a niche that is very important to, support businesses in our region for sure.
Yeah, I'm just trying to help the businesses. If anything, that's probably the big thing. The big focus for me is vendor relationship management, because I used to work for vendors, doing sales for a very long period of my time. I see there's a consistent need as businesses continue to need something technical. Right now, my focus is obviously digital accessibility, but when these businesses need it, that's usually the problem. Is okay, at some point in time they're going to need it. What they don't need is a consistent, continual call from a rep, call from a rep, call from a rep. I want them to be able to do it in time when it makes sense. So if I can educate them on what it is and use me as that intermediary, so I can make the research for them and be that representative for them in the middle. So I can find the qualified candidates for the industry that's out there, put those people together, and just kill all that muckety-muck in the middle so things can happen at the right clip. I'm basically creating a sector by putting myself in the middle.
Yeah, that's awesome. I guess that leads into my next question, which is if someone is interested in digital accessibility and kind of aspires to be in a similar position as you are currently, what should they do? Like, what are the routes to get into that type of work?
I think the best way to start is I would say start the way I did, is get with an organization and learn it. You have to learn digital accessibility at some clip. I went and worked with a vendor initially just to understand it. I mean, it is such a huge monster behemoth of so much to learn. Just to get a handle on what is certification versus what is actual accessibility. You don't have to be certified to be accessible, but certification is something along that line. So being able to understand the differences, understanding what WCAG is, what AODA is, which is the Canadian version of ADA. So understanding some of these different terminologies, that's one thing. There are a lot of sources on the web, but I think the biggest part behind it is passion. My biggest passion has always been for the little guy, has always been for accessibility for all. I've always been, everybody should have everything. I've always been an open source kind of person. Back when I first started sales, I always tell people when I used to do sales way back in the day, I used to get in trouble for something they called the buddy sale. Like I never pushed people. I never pushed people into getting something. Buy now, get it today. I was always been like, if you don't want it, that's cool. I don't care. Literally, that's why I have such great relationships with a lot of people now from clientele, because they know I'm not going to push you on something if you don't need it. literally people almost have to like make me sell them something. I'm like, no, if you don't need it, you're not going to get it. I mean, seriously, it doesn't make any sense. But it really comes down to the passion behind accessibility. Understand that there are people that, and I think, you know, COVID has made it just that much more important that people are online, and they have to understand that, you know, now that more people are online, that's exposing it, that Band-Aid's off now. A lot of people have to have it. They have to have accessibility. So passion's probably the biggest one.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. Like, you know, that's the driver behind so many different things, right? Making transitions into new jobs is having some sort of passion for making that jump. I'm curious, you know, we talk in this series a lot about like identity and kind of representation, and I wanted to know a little bit more about like your experience of whether or not you've seen yourself represented in your peers or your leadership that you've worked with kind of in your current role. If you could talk a little bit more about that part of your experience.
To be honest, I tell people I'm on the back nine of my life right now. So I tell people, because I'm going to be 56 this year. There's more gray hair than that first picture, than the picture I sent you. I think that's just life in general. But I think it's because what the time is. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Kara says you're young.
Thank you. The reality is, I'm taking more of an active role on the back nine, just like I did early on in my life, is because there's not enough representation. There isn't. And you got to be able to lead from the front. You can't lead from the back. When I first got into television, that's my first career, was working. I worked about 10, 12 years in television. I had a lot of very militant friends that had a very negative skew on what television news and coverage was. And we'd sit around and talk about it. And I really got tired of hearing about it. So I got involved, and it led to a very long career, to a point of success. I mean, I won an Emmy when I was in television.
Wow.
But I couldn't do that unless I got involved. So it's the same thing with where I am now with tech, where I am with what I'm doing with my business. I'm trying to every day find a way to take a bigger step to be more in front, because you can't lead from the back. You can't lead from the middle. I'm not afraid to put myself out there. Will I make some mistakes? Yeah, absolutely. But I think it comes down to the intention. Why am I doing this? Because I want to inspire more people that look like me to do exactly what I'm doing. Why are you doing it? Because you want to inspire other people to do the same.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think that that's a big, you know, obviously like diversity in tech is such a big conversation right now, as it should be. And, you know, I think at TAO, we think a lot about kind of how like STEM education and how do you get people excited about careers from like the very beginning. And I think it's that constant, you know, what you're talking about, like exposure and seeing people that look like you, so that you can envision yourself doing a job like that in the future, is such a key part of that.
Right, and I think what also has helped me is the same thing that's hurt me, is I've worked for so many different organizations. I've helped so many companies make a lot of money, and unfortunately, a lot of times those long-term relationships ends up with them showing me the door. Well, the last relationship, they showed me the door, which is, you know, sent me into me starting my organization that I have now, which I see becoming something very, very critical and crucial for the future. So now I'm just taking my original idea and something that I know I do better, and why people tend to hire me is I do relationships very well. I do interaction very well. I build relationships and build bridges and facilitate things very well. Well, then why not just do it with my own darn business? Okay.
Yeah. Heck yeah. That's awesome. Like, you're just like, here's my skill set. I'm going to use it. Yes, I aspire to kind of find my niche the way that it sounds like you have.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What about, we just had a call earlier today, our power pairing event for women tech executives, and there was a question about imposter syndrome in that event. And, you know, that's something that I deal with, you know, I've been sort of dealing with. And during these calls, I often ask folks about their experience with imposter syndrome and if they've found like a way to mitigate it in their, work life, basically.
Yeah, that comes up, and I know I've asked that question a lot every time I attend one of these because, it's something that I've had to deal with, fight past, work through in every career iteration of my life. And I won't say unfortunately, I'll say fortunately. I've told young African Americans that have been in every work sector or business sector I've worked in, the true nature has been, if I enter a career, I've got to have more credentials. I've had to work later. I've had to stay later. I've had to perform at a higher level. I've had to do more. But guess what? Okay. To me, I would rather do that from a performance standpoint than the papers on the wall, because what I've learned at the end of the day, it's going to be my performance that people remember. It's going to be what they see. And what I take away from this has always been one of my favorite comparators. On the side, I DJ. I've been a mobile DJ for like 3 freaking decades. Okay, it's really stupid, but I've been a mobile DJ forever, and I've come up against some DJs that have been doing it a lot longer than I have. But I tell the people that I do things for, 20 years from now, I want people to remember your event, not me. They're going to think back and say, what an amazing party that was 10 years ago. They're not going to go, oh my gosh, that was a great fruit plate, and I mean, that dinner was so amazing, and oh my God, that chair I sat in, it was so cool. They're going to say that was a party. Oh my God, I passed out. I was partying so hard. That's what I want them to remember, because I was part of that event. But I don't care if they remember my name. It's just because the event itself. But I don't have any professional DJ credentials. I didn't go to DJ school. It's the same thing with everything that I put my heart, mind, and soul into what I'm doing. So when it comes to imposter syndrome, I tried to actually talk to a certification company for like the very base level certification. I have some credential for what I do as a accessibility advocate. They told me I had to have 10 years as a coder to do what I'm doing. And I said, you guys make no sense. You want me to have 10 years to tell people that they need to learn about digital accessibility? That makes no sense at all. I'm not going to do it. Plus I had to pay them money. Like, no.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you for sharing. I mean, I think that like bringing up credentials is a huge part of it, right? It's not just, it's like, can you actually walk the walk, right? You could take a test or whatever and have a credential, but when push comes to shove, you're not actually going to be able to perform. So
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask you one more question, and then we will open it up to see if there are any questions from the audience.
Okay.
If you could share one piece of wisdom that has benefited you in your life and career, what would it be? And
I will share my quote.
Yeah.
Intention. Stay true to intention. So I always say, they may say possession's 9/10 of the law, but what you say, try to do, or people, okay, so I'm gonna back up. Intention, stay true to what you want to do, because people's perception of what you say, try to do, or try to actually do is 100% of their reality. You cannot change people's thoughts. You can't argue with it. You can never even change or do anything with it. You can shape it by staying true to your intention. If you stay true to your intention, you will actually change what people actually think and actually change the world. Stay true to intention.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Marty. Okay, so we're going to switch over. We have just a couple more minutes just to see if there are any questions coming in from the audience, and then we will get things wrapped up. Thank you so much for answering questions so far.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I think Justin's going to switch us over to Mentimeter.
Okay.
In just a second. Justin. Okay, maybe not. We will keep it just the way it is, which is totally fine. But I know that one question that I didn't ask because I thought we were running out of time, but I know is like a really exciting thing, is if you could share your favorite thing about your career. What's the coolest thing looking back?
The favorite thing about my career is that I take it from a quote that I heard the other day. Is it's constantly moving forward, and I've been able to really foster some great new relationships by continuing to move forward. I've had some really serious challenges, and economy blowups. I moved to Oregon right at the tail end of the economy explosion. I had another consulting. I was actually coaching real estate investors. I had a very successful real estate investing coaching business that I was doing at the time that just crashed and burned. And I came to Oregon, which was really hot at the time. Why would I move here at the tail end of the economy crash? I don't know. Sounded great. But I've lived here in Oregon longer than I've lived anywhere. So I think just the ability to continue to move forward, having that forward thinking with challenge, I think has just been, I've been very fortunate. I've been very fortunate to have some great people in my life. So
I love that. I mean, and I think that it's all about the energy you put into the world, right? So if you're just moving forward with that positive energy, I mean, it seems like from the little I know you that you must be kind of manifesting these.
My nickname is Marty. My DJ name is DJ Marty GEE for energy and enthusiasm. I try to keep that in everything that I do. So
that's awesome.
It's a true story.
Super cool. I wish I had a cool event to plan right now that I could bring you on as my DJ to make an epic party that people would remember.
Keep me in mind. I can mix it up hardcore, old school.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Marty. We're going to wrap things up. Just want to let folks know for our October I Am Tech Oregon event, we're going to have a conversation with Alex Hernandez, who's the Senior Manager of Community Engagement and Talent Development at Open Sesame. And she's doing a lot of cool work with just thinking of different ways to get underrepresented young people into tech through partnerships with tech companies. So we'll hear more about that. And registration for that event is live at techoregon.org/events. And we will also send a registration link out with the feedback survey. Thank you to everyone for joining us today. Remember, I am Tech Oregon, and I'm wishing you all a beautiful Thursday and great rest of your week. Thank you.
Thank you, Ruthie. Thanks everybody for hanging out. We'll see you.
All right. Bye, Marty.